to Chelsea. Go ahead.
Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, I want to start by thanking everybody for being here today and making this a priority. It is our pleasure to present to you the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. The city staff has been working on this budget for the last few months, and we are excited to go over some of the things that we've been working on with you tonight. Just a reminder, I say this every year, as city council members, this is one of the most important things you do as elected officials. You are tasked with overseeing the taxpayers' money and allocating that appropriately for the services that they need and expect from their city government. I'm going to go over a lot of information tonight. If there's something you don't understand, ask questions. We have plenty of time for questions. I'm also looking for feedback on the proposed budget. So how I would like to handle tonight, silence is confirmation. If there's something you do not like in the proposal, let's discuss it. If a majority of council members are in favor of something, we will move forward to the next topic. Does anyone have questions before we get started? Okay, just a couple of housekeeping things. Dinner will be provided around 5:30. TCI is catering tonight. We will have a small break. If you need a break in between breaks, just let us know because I do think we've got plenty of time allocated. You may notice that this year's budget presentation is even more beautiful and better than last year's. I want to thank Susan Lawton. She spent a significant amount of time polishing the budget presentation for us and putting her magic touch on it, so thank you to Susan. So I'm going to start off tonight. I'm going to kick us off. Andrew Skinner is going to then talk about property taxes and valuations and overall finances of the city. And then at the end of the evening or towards the end, the department heads are going to give you an overview of all of their budgets. Okay, so if no one has questions, we will get started. So every year when we start the budget process, we start with a budget calendar. Since there are public notices and 2 public hearings involved with the budget, it's really important that we establish and stick to timelines and we set deadlines for the budget. So I'm going to go over the budget schedule real briefly. As I've mentioned, city staff has been working on the budget for the past few months. City department heads were given their worksheets back in late November, early December, with the request that they have their request for budget to the finance director before December 17th. Between the days of January 7th and the 14th, the city manager, finance director, and department heads sat down to talk about their request for fiscal year 2027. Tonight, we are holding the first budget work session with the city council and the full city staff. Tentatively, we will hold a second budget work session February 9th at 5 p.m. prior to the regular city council meeting. That is tentative because if we don't need to have that second budget work session, we will not have it. But typically when we hold the first work session, there are things that we need to go back and correct in the budget. So that's an opportunity for you all to see corrections that have been made between the 2 budget work sessions. February 23rd, this is an important one. The city will need to set the hearing for the property tax levy. And you will need to set that at the February 23rd City Council meeting. You will set that public hearing for March 23rd. I'm going to just skip over the February 24th. That is information that the city staff enters into the Department of Management. That's a deadline the city staff needs to make. The notice must be published for that property tax levy no later than March 13th. March 23rd, we will hold that property tax hearing, that levy hearing. The requirement is that it has to be held at a separate meeting, and it can be the only item on the agenda. So what we have done in the past few years, since this is a relatively new requirement, is we've held a meeting at 5:30 p.m. prior to the regular business meeting that begins at 6 p.m. At that March 23rd business meeting, so after you've held that public hearing at 5:30 p.m. or at whatever time we hold that special meeting, you will then set the hearing for adoption of the budget. So 2 public hearing requirements. The first one is specific to the levy rate, the city's proposed levy rate. The second one is specific to the adoption of the actual budget. So then the city council will hold the budget hearing and consider adoption of the final budget at the April 13th city council meeting. Does anyone have questions on the budget schedule? Okay, I have a couple of slides. I want to just talk about some highlights. These are high-level highlights. I feel confident that what we are proposing to the city council is a well-rounded, balanced budget. A balanced budget in my purview is when your expenses do not exceed your revenue. During today's discussion, you will notice that some of the funds may appear to be negative. This does not mean the city is spending more than we are bringing in, but what happens for some funds, it's typically capital project funds. The revenue is brought in during a previous year and hits the city books, and then the expenses occur in another year or a preceding year. For this proposed budget, the only negative funds are the capital project funds, which are funds 301 through 312. Another highlight is, good news, our valuations from 2026 increased. That's not the case for every city. The city's regular taxable valuations increased by 2.65%, and debt service valuations increased by 6.78%. Just a reminder that the main difference between these 2 separate taxable valuation numbers is that the debt service levy is a protected levy, which means it is exempt from being captured by tax increment financing districts. This clause in the Iowa code ensures that these tax revenues go to the debt service funds rather than funding TIF projects. For the proposed budget, I am recommending the city hold an aggregate levy rate of $11 per 1,000 assessed. This would be the same rate as the current year, fiscal year 2026. I am making this recommendation due to a number of factors. I just would like to share those with you tonight. And I think it's important to know that we spend a lot of time talking about what the proposed tax levy rate is going to be. It's not something that we just, decide on. It's something we spend a number of months talking about and making a decision on, or making a proposal to the city council. Some of the reasons why I'm proposing we keep the levy rate the same this year. I don't feel like I can recommend reducing the city's tax levy when we are in the midst of potential property tax reform. And the state of Iowa may require us to lower the levy next year. So that's the main basis for the recommendation. I also cannot recommend reducing the tax levy because I know the city staff still has needs for their departments and concerns about Polk City's rapid growth rate and being able to keep up with the growth, which will require additional services be provided to the residents. On the flip side, I can't recommend an increase to the city's tax levy rate either because I don't think we need to increase the levy rate this year. Yes, there are needs, but with strategic planning, I do believe that we can continue to meet the needs of our citizens and of our departments if we plan strategically and intentionally. I will also remind the city council, the city does have a very healthy fund balance. Should the city need to spend any fund balance or any of those city reserves, that is something we could have a conversation about. The last highlight I want to point out is that we've incorporated all of the City Council priorities from both the capital improvement plan and from strategic planning that we held earlier in January. With that said, just some additional highlights for you. Proposed revenue for the proposed budget. Total budget is just a little higher than $19 million. Total expenses is $21,800,000. Yes, I know it appears that we are bringing in less revenue than we are spending, but I can attribute that to the capital projects that the city has going on. And like I mentioned previously, the revenues hit the city's bank account in a previous year, and we will be spending the money in future years. So that is why you see those numbers so different. The total operating budget, I think this is important. I think the citizens ask you all this question. This does not include capital projects or capital equipment. This is just operating expenses. The total operating budget is $13,600,000. The total general fund budget, so of that $13 million budget, your general fund budget is $5.4 million. With the proposed budget as is, our projected general fund surplus is $42,000. I feel good about this. I have experienced enough over my years in city government with significant increases to both property and health insurance premium increases that I get a little bit nervous. I like that general fund reserve to be a little bit higher, but I feel confident given the city does have strong reserves. Let's see. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So I want to talk next about the city projects, the capital projects that we have in next year's proposed budget. I think there's going to be some dialogue from the council, so again, ask questions if you have them. I am going to talk about all of these projects. I'm going to go over them. Some of them are new projects and some of them have been previously approved or authorized by the City Council. But projects that I want to discuss today, the North Trunk Sewer Project, the Polk City Corridor Studies Project, former City Hall Remodel Project, Annual Street Repair Project, Police Station and Library Schematic, Polk City Junction Trail and Trailhead Project, the Sump Pump Collector Project, Northside Drive Roundabout in Phase 1 of the trail, and then the Regional Park Phase 1 project. So the first project I want to discuss tonight is the North Trunk Sewer Project. As discussed at Monday's work session, the North Trunk Sewer Project is being prioritized in fiscal year 2027. The estimated cost of that trunk sewer is $3.8 million. For fiscal year 27, we have budgeted $1.8 million. We anticipate this construction project would continue into fiscal year 28, so that is why we've not budgeted the full amount. The funding source that we have identified to fund this project is general obligation and state revolving fund loan. We'd repay back those loans with tax increment financing and sanitary sewer revenue. My recommendation, given that this is a substantial project, is if this is a project we proceed with in fiscal year 2027, I would recommend the City Council consider doing a request for proposals for engineering services this spring. We have done this process a number of times in the past few years when we have a bigger or a larger capital improvement project. I would recommend we put out a request for firms to give us for proposals. We would evaluate those proposals, and then we would decide on who would design that trunk sewer project. Last given that the north trunk sewer is being prioritized over the northeast trunk sewer, the city council needs to do an amendment to the city's capital improvement plan. A number of other projects we are going to discuss tonight is going to prompt that requirement. So my recommendation, my suggestion is that we get through the budget process. You all approve a budget April 13th, and then we turn around and amend the city's capital improvement plan. Does anyone have questions on the trunk sewer project?
Is this just going to be planned as a 2-year project, or is this going to be spread out into a 3rd year as well?
I could see it going both ways, to be honest with you. A lot of it just depends on what we receive for bids. We're a little bit preliminary in that we've not put together a timeline. We do that once we select a firm that could do the design work. I would say it could be 2 or 3 years.
I had a quick question on the designs that we got from Monday, the red and the pink. How far does this project, how far does it take that trunk sewer? And I guess how many properties would be impacted with easements?
I cannot answer that question for you on the spot, but I could, when we have a break, we could come back to that and I could pull up that study and get you some answers.
Okay. How about the process for easements?
There more than likely would be some acquisitions that would need to be made.
Okay.
Sometimes the city's successful in negotiating acquisitions. Sometimes we start the condemnation process.
Okay.
Yeah, so the more I thought about Monday as well, I think I've got more questions. I feel very good about, to me, the presentation, and tell me if I'm not thinking about this correctly or misremembering some ground that we've covered, but was an excellent proposal for if we're going to do one north versus northeast. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
North, yeah. Makes more sense. I don't remember having a conversation of if we're going in, given that order, what the impact is to specific developments and therefore when it should fit into what fiscal year, what budget year we plug it into. And I know that makes things more difficult for you because these are big ticket items and, you know, flipping it from this to that is not an easy thing to do. So I recognize that it could be a shift here, but I do think in talking about this a little bit more, there are, you know, easements being one, and we've seen that escalate costs elsewhere for projects. But we also didn't really get into okay, if we don't do this till 27, that's going to halt all development in this corridor, or it will potentially delay other developments, and how does that look? Is it residential? Is it commercial? What? And so that's where I'm trying to think of how best to set this up, and I don't think that I'm phrasing it very good, but I do think there's a foundational discussion that we have. Whether that at this juncture leaves it in the 27, I don't know. I think that may be a question of, is it better to proceed with it in there and then poke holes in it and maybe it isn't 27 or whatever, you know, kicking it back, or if it does the opposite, and Chelsea, Mike, whoever, if I'm rejiggering some of the foundational conversations we've had I'm all for the ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure approach that we've taken to this. I do, $1.8 million is a lot of money. Like you pointed out with, we also know that it's not going to be that for reasons that will, not just inflation, but acquisition and some of those costs. So I don't know, before I ask that question, am I plowing ground that you all thought we already covered?
I think it'd be a good, and obviously just a couple weeks in, so the last 2 years, I'm not sure what you did, but that would be a really advantageous discussion to have to understand what's impacted it.
Rob, to answer your question, I can tell you there's fewer acquisitions involved with the north than there is the northeast. That was, again, one of the reasons we recommended constructing the north before the northeast.
Okay.
I can't give you a number on the spot, but I can tell you that for a fact.
Asking anyone to sign off on, this one's gonna be, and there's not gonna be any surprises like the new consent.
So I guess what I recall from the conversation was why we needed to do the north over the northeast, those kind of pressures that are pushing that. However, I do agree, we didn't get into a lot of the logistics of what are gonna be the impacts of moving with this right now. So, I would agree that, I would like to see maybe some additional conversation on that. I don't know if that's at a point where we would need to remove this out of our budget for 27. But there would potentially be, based on what we learned, there might be some changes. I guess that's my only thought, and I'd look to my peers for your input.
I think I'm on largely the same page as you. We should continue with this in the budget. We should talk about what our impacts are gonna be. We should figure out what those easements we're going to need are going to be, and really start thinking about how we coordinate this with other projects, with the North Side Drive roundabout, if we've got any impacts that are gonna happen. If we're tearing up fresh concrete to lay down new sewer pipe, I'm not sure what all this is going to entail, and I would like to have some idea on those types of questions.
I think that's a good approach, is to keep it in the budget. You've got it as a placeholder. There are lots of triggers that can be pulled if the council wants to have further discussion on this. I do want you all to know that there are a lot of answers you will not get until you get into design. You can certainly ask some of the questions of our city engineer, but until you actually get out there and start designing the project, it's going to be hard to answer some of those things.
Well, personally for me, I think a fair answer is we don't know what we don't know, right? That is an answer. You might not like it, but I think there are some things that he'll be able to answer for us. And I think those are the things, at least for me, that would help provide a little bit more clarity. Since I'm speaking, I do have one more thing. This RFP for engineering services, that is just submitting RFP out, right? Not necessarily engaging in anything until fiscal year 27.
Correct, but I would like to start that process this spring, because it typically adds 3 months to your process. We would spend no money until fiscal year 27.
Yes, that's, my question was loaded. I was curious if there was any expenses associated with it.
The timing of that I do wonder about, because how, to me, having the discussion on when before we go to an RFP, I would hate to do an RFP, change the priority, and then have that RFP work sit for however long, if anything does adjust. Does that make sense?
Is it feasible to have our conversation with engineering services prior to that and see if that changes anything? Think that would be fair?
We can make that happen.
Plus the real reason, I want to give the new public works director a win that the old one couldn't get here in a couple months. So.
What? I'm not paying.
Okay, any other questions on the trunk sewer project?
Real quick, just, I guess it would be a specific maybe for engineering. But that property on 126 that could potentially be commercial, does this cost get sewer service to there? And is that the only option to get sewer service to there?
Yes. Yes and yes.
Okay.
This is how that property is going to be serviced, and there's no other route we could go to service that property. Yep, that's a great question.
Is the Ruckel property already figured into our current capacity?
Yes.
Okay, what about the Johnson property? the 400 acres there.
No.
So that needs this trunk sewer to be a reality.
Some of it could be serviced depending on how quickly Four Seasons goes through, but since you've already approved the Four Seasons plat, I think you should give them the priority for what's available. The Young property is what you're referencing,
Young
and we do not
property.
know how we will service that property with existing sewers. Are you talking about just east of 72nd Street?
Yeah. Sorry, I said the wrong name. Young
Yeah,
property.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Let's go to the next project, the Polk City Corridor Studies Project. Sorry, let me just go back. I'm going to leave the North Trunk Sewer in the budget. That's what I'm hearing from you all, so I'm going to leave it in the budget.
Yes.
Thank you for the confirmation. Polk City Corridor Study, the City Council prioritized a Third Street Corridor Study and a Town Square Master Plan in the Capital Improvement Plan. The Third Street Corridor Study was slated for fiscal year '26, that is in our current budget year. The Town Square Master Plan was slated for '27. The City Council discussed doing a larger study, and we came up with the corridor study, which combined a number of studies into one consolidated study. And it also included Bridge Road. So the city council authorized a contract for the Polk City Corridor Study for $109,900. That was done in December 2025. So what we would propose is splitting the cost of those studies over 2 fiscal years. We would expend $54,950 in '26 and then the same amount in '27. We will need to do an amendment to the '26 budget since we will be spending more than we budgeted for a study. I would also recommend an amendment to the city's CIP for this project since this does not align what's in the actual CIP document. Again, I would anticipate doing a larger capital improvement plan amendment after we get through the budget.
So I guess I want to call out to make sure, especially for our new members here, but this does include the money that was kicked in, right, from the DOT?
Yes, I don't know what budget year we put that in, but we are anticipating $25,000 from the Department of Transportation.
This number reflects, the 109,000 reflects our portion of it. There's a
No, I thought 109 was,
That is the total portion.
total portion.
Yeah.
But how the DOT contracts work is we spend the money and then they give us a reimbursement.
To us.
So you need to budget for the full expense.
Okay.
Any questions about this one? Okay, let's talk about the former City Hall remodel project. This project is in the city's CIP for fiscal year '27 for $250,000. The city council asked to bump up a portion of that remodel into '26. We've done approximately $100,000 in remodel work to the current building. I have placed in the fiscal year '27 budget $150,000 to continue this project. My estimate is that that could cover the demolition of the south addition. I think this is up for discussion because I don't know that we've actually decided that, but this is what is in the city CIP. So we are being cognizant of the council's priority and putting it in the CIP. It's in next year's budget as well.
so I guess I just wanted to call out, just to make sure we clarify this, if people are watching this. The $100,000 to date, that is primarily the work that was done to the schoolhouse, right?
And the demolition of the north addition.
And the demolition, but it wasn't like we went in and got.
Less than 24 hours after it was approved, might I add.
He's efficient when he's out the door, so. Okay. So your proposal is to change this in anticipation of demolishing that south side, even though we haven't had conversations?
I'm putting it in the budget because it's in the CIP. So I'm trying to follow the direction that I've been given that's in that document through the CIP. But what I'm telling you tonight is we've got a placeholder for $150,000. That doesn't necessarily have to be for demolition. But that was the last conversation we had, was we talked about demoing both additions. I think that there was general consensus for the north. I think there were differing opinions for the south.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think having that discussion and a placeholder for the budget, is it demolition? Is it a proposal for how we could use it? Is it a proposal from PD on how they could use it? I don't know if FD has a use, but historical society, businesses, whatever,
Yep.
right? To use, to change,
To repurpose
to
it.
whatever, yeah.
More so than just storage.
And hoping that the demolition, kind of prompts some thinking and,
Well, we could keep Mike around and get the demolition pretty cheap and pretty quick.
I don't know, could we get him back in town to knock that down? Is that worth your time?
There's a company I can,
No, I like the idea of keeping this as a placeholder, having it there, letting the process play out of having all parties come to the table and deciding if there's an actual use case for keeping it. And if not, proceeding with the demolition.
Is it needed right now for storage? Is the police department using it?
Chief?
Yeah, we have some stuff in the chambers itself. The majority of the stuff we moved over from our space is in the vault.
Okay.
Never all the way to the vault. So it's deep red. All the stuff we do have in the cold chamber.
But it still has value for you at this point in time.
Yeah, but if you're talking about taking out that south side, utilize.
Okay. I think this is the
That
kind
would
of,
not affect anything with us.
this is the kind of conversation to be had in the near future, I would hope.
Yeah, I agree too with that. I think it makes sense leaving it in.
Okay. Any other questions, any thoughts on this before we move on? Okay. Mike is going to get a huge smile on his face any minute now, but the annual street repair project. This is an annual project we do each year. It's funded by a combination of road use tax and local option sales tax. We identify panels of streets throughout the community that need to be repaired or replaced. We typically budget $250,000. We are recommending $400,000 for fiscal year 2027. We have been talking about trying to do a larger project for a number of years to try to get ahead of our street repairs that need to be completed. The list continues to grow and grow and grow, and throwing $250,000 at this project annually is not keeping up. So we'd recommend doing additional this year. It would be completed using some local option sales tax. But our recommendation is that the prioritization of repairs are based on street grade and condition grade, which you've all seen that list.
How much of this increase are we looking at for things like the sidewalk repairs? that we plan on taking on this year.
You want to
We can have
answer
a
that?
portion of that. Yeah, we discussed it, we haven't put a number to it, but that definitely can be some of those repairs as well, trail repairs, street repairs, and then you're talking the sidewalk project.
Sidewalk, trails, everything that needs to fall under that project, and whether or not that comes in as part of this project or if that's somewhere else in your budget.
It would be money.
So I guess my only comment to that, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that approach. I guess my only comment to that is, 2 years in, I consistently hear that we're behind, we're not catching up. I mean, even, I don't know what the delta would be, say it was $50,000 to use for those other items and not street repairs. Is 150, just using numbers here, is that gonna be enough to actually, get us up to a point where we're starting to breathe? Or is, I guess I'm looking for, at what point, do we have to start increasing that a little bit more so we're not gonna always be trying to play catch up on street repairs?
So street repairs are always gonna be a moving target, right? You're going to repair some, you're going to always put some on the list the next spring. The next year, we do the inventory, which we do it every year. So right now, and like I said, this is gonna be very close, but the last time we looked at it was 4.41 million in repairs right now. That is everything from a grade 1 to a grade 5. We have them graded that way. But that's all grades. So total 4.41 million in repairs, and there's 240,000 in trail repairs. I did not put the sidewalk repairs in there, so that number is outside of this. But that's what we have right now on the books. There might be a few repairs that we've already made, so, you could probably knock a few, 10,000s off of this, but yeah, so that's what we're dealing with. That's why the 250 just hasn't been doing what it needs. So jumping it to 400 is great, but you can see what we're up against there. That's 10 years worth of repairs at 400, and prices go up, and that's gonna put us behind, and then you're gonna be adding others to it in that 10-year period. So the number has to go up, but we're making small chunks at it here, and I think that's great.
So
This is more of a cost of living adjustment than it is a catch-up contribution type thing.
Yeah, so I guess my second question was what was our strategy gonna be before Nick made that comment about where was the funds gonna come out of for the sidewalks? Was that gonna come out of the same fund or a different fund?
Are you talking about the sidewalks the city's responsible for? Uh-oh.
The sidewalk.
That was what I was referring to. Yes, the things we've now committed through our sidewalk program to repair, yes.
So I guess what I'm looking for is, are we truly adding another 150K to the street repair, or is it gonna be less because we're gonna be using funds out of the?
That's a good question. Do you recall what we had for city responsible sidewalks that needed to be repaired?
I don't have that number.
Okay,
No.
okay. It's a good question. I think it's valid. I can't tell you what the amount is. We do have other line items we can use for small repairs, but nothing substantial, I would say. We might want to look at that.
Okay. So following on Rob's, this is more of a cost of living adjustment over what we've been budgeting. Are we keeping up? Are we adding more things than we're actually paying down? Is that 4.1% growing faster than, 4.1 million growing faster than the inflationary costs of cycling things on and off? Did that question make sense?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
At the 250, correct. We
We were falling behind.
We were falling behind, yeah. So the better off the 400, it depends on the year, right? If you have a.
Sure, that's gonna vary. You're gonna have a bad winter. and-
Winter's usually where the damage happens, right? So you can have good years, bad years, but we're usually adding 10 panels you know, so there's throw numbers out like that. It just depends, let's put it that way. But at 250, we are not keeping up. That's a good statement. At 400, we'd probably just be making some good progress, keeping up, maybe making a little headway.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess follow up to that, Mike. Just curious, how long have you been around 250 a year?
We've had good, you know, we've had more than this, but that.
On average?
3 years. And it's went from 250 to probably 300, and we had 225 1 year, so that's kind of an average, but 3 or 4 years like that.
Okay, and so just kind of like looking forward over the next, you know, whatever, 5 to 10 years, and you have, what'd you say, 4.1 million identified. Is there like a good formula that we should count on each year? Like, is it 10%, 15% of that amount to at least stay even, or, you know, shave a little bit off year after year? So I'm thinking we should probably plan every year it's at least gonna be 400, if not more, right?
Right. I'd really like to get the next director their eyes on it as well. So I hate to say something and then
Yeah.
they say something different, but we have to keep up, we have to be more than the 400,000.
Right.
I don't know if I can give you a percentage or not, but we have to be above that number to make headway and actually move the target. That's what I would like to say at the time, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We can be better prepared. We could come back with a list of what we think we could get done for $400,000. Would that be helpful?
I mean, with it being a moving target year over year with what we put on and take off, yeah, that would help. But
Okay.
I mean, just having an overall strategy for how we address these things year over year, and whether we're playing keep up or whether we're trying to inch that overall repair number down, not the number we budget, but the amount outstanding. Are we trying to inch that down, or are we just trying to play keep up? And I think that's more of a strategy thing we need to.
If it doesn't require a whole bunch of time, it would be nice to see, but the 400, I think, is a given. I think
Yes.
the question is, going forward, how much more do we need to up here? And looking at how, what did you say, grade 1 to 4? Is that the range? So where do those things lie? If we can up it to 500 or whatever, how much does that get us? Assuming certain additions, which is speculative, we don't know what it looks like. And then, because I know it's very situational, right? If you live on a bad road, it stinks. If you don't, then you don't care. And unfortunately, that's more of what this is. But having a barometer for, you know, per capita, there's, you know, X dollar of grade 4. Is 1 or 5, 1 or 4 worse?
5 is worse, yeah.
Okay, so as it goes up, how much of that is not acceptable, but, you know, do communities live with? That, I think it would be a good work session to.
No, I
walk through
agree
that.
too, kind of understand how do other cities tackle this, you know? I would be very interested in having those conversations, and sounds like we're gonna have it with the next director, so.
'Cause, yeah. Happy. The fear that I have is the panels, the one-offs are fine, but what's the next corridor? What's the next, we haven't done a big project in a long time, and we haven't done a big project on our own in a really long time. So what is that unavoidable, you know?
Help me understand what that consists of.
What would be the equivalent of Ankeny Boulevard for us, right? Where it's a 2-year,
Oh, okay.
multi-million dollar, like, I don't know that we have a stretch of road that is that busy, certainly, nor do we have one that is in need of change, but that's the existential budget item that, you know,
So,
going from 400 to 500 to 600 a year isn't gonna keep us from.
Broadway Street is going to be one to tackle, all the way from the city limits down in. That's roughly a couple miles. It's gonna be probably an asphalt overlay. It's okay now, but that's one that will have to be tackled, just what
Yeah.
you're saying. It's gonna be a very large project that wouldn't even fit into this type of a budget right here. Yeah,
It'd have its own line item.
it has to have its own plan.
We can come back with more information. I think that would be a good exercise for us to do for the next work session. Okay, let's talk about the police station and library schematic. This is in the city CIP for fiscal year '28. We have put it in the budget for '27, given the direction from the council at the goal-setting meeting. We are estimating $30,000 for each schematic for a total of $60,000. I think what I need a little direction from is, does the library schematic include a rec center? If you recall, looking back at the city's master facility plan, which was done in 2020, we talked about combining the library and a rec center. If you are interested in that schematic, am I including a rec facility?
For the $30,000, does that change? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, do you get a option A and option B, one with a rec center and one without in that 30, or is it?
I would agree with that comment.
I was thinking it would just be for the footprint that we have next to the library now, right?
For with a rec center?
But if you look back at that plan, we talked about putting a rec center and a library together on that lot.
I guess my only thoughts with that is there has been, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been murmurs of a potential third party, not a city-run rec center, right, coming.
Yes, there has been.
That's why I would like, I think our city, personally, I think our city could benefit from a rec center. Now, I would ideally like to have one of, someone else fund it. But if that falls through, I'd like to understand, what it would look like for us to be able to do something like that. Do you have a comment? No. So I guess my comment would be is, what would a recommendation or a schematic with and without a rec center look like from a funding?
I don't know that, but that's something that I could certainly ask. I use the schematic pricing the city paid for this building, and I added inflation costs to get that estimate. So I can certainly ask that. I'd have to ask like a professional architect, but.
Is that something everybody else up here would be interested, kind of both, or am I kind of up by myself up here?
Well, those doesn't cost any, if it's all the same.
Well, I doubt it's gonna be all the same.
Probably going to cost more money to do a rec center in addition to the library, and it would cost more money if you want two concepts, one with and one without.
Yeah, I still kind of go back to the economy as a scale. If they're already doing one, how much more effort is it to take that and then add a little additional?
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing the price of doing both.
Okay.
So on the library side, I don't want to move on.
No.
Another, I know we took a straw poll, but I'll just reiterate, if what I think I heard from Chief is that, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, so stop me, but you're open to the idea of another location than here. A schematic would be specific to here. I would rather pursue, and I know that comes with pluses and minuses, the campus, or not, it's not campus, what'd you call it, the central.
Yeah, like a campus.
Yeah, that compromising that comment doesn't come with pluses and minuses. If the timeline we can pursue elsewhere, before we do any schematic dollars that would be specific to that site, I would like to vet whether or not that's commercially viable in another venue, and then where that leaves us, that doesn't change the timeline, to include owned property or buying somewhere else. But I think the consensus was for pursuing a schematic here. I'll just reiterate, we've talked a lot about commercial growth. We've not done much of anything. We've also talked about Third being an avenue where we want to grow commercially to lose, what is that, 3/4 of a block away from the square for something that could, could be elsewhere with little impact. And given the fact that there may be some timeliness, if we're talking to interested parties, like on Third and Davis, I have to believe that, hey, while you're doing work over here, would you be interested in doing something similar over there type of thing? Maybe I'm really hoping against hope that there's something there that there's not. But again, that property's not for sale, so I don't know that we've got a good, pulse check on what else could be there, because it's always been a police station, I think, as advertised. So what are people's
So-
thoughts on that?
I guess my comment is, and I don't know the answer to this, someone else probably does, but is a schematic dependent on the actual topography of where, not necessarily the
It's site specific.
site system?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be really hard to do then. I mean, in principle, I agree with what you're saying. But how do you proceed with a schematic then when you don't know where you potentially would build? Because we don't have any other property right now.
So that's my question is, where would we be looking at for a secondary location? And following on, where in our calendar year, or in our budget year, would we be planning on undertaking this schematic to be done? If we've got 9-10 months, we plan on doing the schematic later on in the year, we've got some time to talk about where we want to have this new police station be set up. But yeah, we would need to be thinking about
And would want input,
whether or
because
not that's the location. And we would, if we do go with a secondary location, then we have to have eyes on a piece of property before we start drawing up a schematic. So that's,
and I've given it minutes worth of thought. So, I'm open to feedback on what just because it doesn't have to be here, doesn't mean it can be too far out either. So I get the point that it can't just be anywhere. We can't put it on the moon. I'm, how far is too far is a flatter footprint with, room to grow. I think there's a lot of things, and we don't have many, again, properties available at that size with the proximity to the square that has, in a corridor that we've identified, to be grown commercial.
so for the sake of fiscal year '27, we keep this money in for a schematic. We find ourselves some time to do a work session to talk about different locations. We start eyeballing property if we're thinking about a secondary location. Is that a reasonable way to go forward on this one?
If the money's there, we have some time to have additional conversation on the best place, right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't think
Okay
we
with
need to
that?
decide between that property and somewhere else tonight. I think we're just talking about
the money.
earmarking some money for the design, and if we're doing that this year.
Okay, leave what's in the budget. Okay. These 4 projects are all projects that have been previously approved, authorized by the city council, and construction will continue into fiscal year '27. So a portion of their expenses are included in the budget. Polk City Junction Trail and Trailhead Project, Sump Pump Collector Project, North Side Drive Roundabout, and Phase 1 of the Trail Project, and the Regional Park Phase 1. I do want to highlight some of the other priorities which have been brought up, which I've incorporated into the 27 budget. So we're moving on from projects and kind of diving into some smaller items or smaller cost items. For economic development, I've not included a position, like a person or a staff member in the 27 budget, but we have budgeted $20,000 for a local government investor package membership. I have done a little research on this over the last few weeks, and Mayor Karsden and I will be meeting with the Greater Des Moines Partnership and the Ames Economic Alliance in the next 2 weeks to get a good idea of what both offer. We anticipate bringing that information back to the council after we've held those meetings. I have budgeted $5,000 for a chamber membership with the Polk City Area Chamber of Commerce. This would be a community sponsor membership, and I think there would be some value in the city having a membership with the chamber. But again, I kind of wanted to give you that information because I know that the city did not fund Go Polk City back in December. So this is something that I have had conversations with the chamber about, is would there be an opportunity for the city to have a membership just like a normal business pays? Is this something you're interested in doing?
What would that, doesn't that membership then include us in the Greater Des Moines Partnership?
It does, but you get more services if you buy a different membership package with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. A lot of cities use their affiliate relationship with their chamber, but will also pay for additional economic development services in addition to. I mentioned this on Monday. I've budgeted for the Four Seasons Festival. I used the $45,000 figure for the event, offset by some revenue that we've estimated, and that $35,000 part-time position for the Parks and Rec Department. Okay. Some of these items have not been discussed by the full city council. Some have. Some I've had individual conversations with you about. I have proposed budgeting to have a master arts plan completed. So Bravo offers a grant which covers 60% of the cost of a master art plan. I know that the city council is always looking for a higher return on investment for what we pay Bravo through our hotel motel tax contribution. And this grant would be something we could apply for, and I think we would have high success in obtaining it. The cost of an art plan, I have an estimated cost of $25,000. So I would estimate that Bravo would cover $15,000 and the city of Polk City would cover $10,000. I think this would be a great way to leverage the Arts and Culture Committee as well as the public. But I think we need to have a conversation about some sort of arts plan because the city really has no standards for public art. Having standards would be helpful when inquiries are made about murals and proposed art structures. Does anybody have questions or concerns about that? I know I've had some individual conversations with some of you, but this would be a grant we could go after through Bravo. They just increased their contribution. It used to be they'd only cover 40%. This year, they're covering up to 60%.
So Chelsea, if they didn't we didn't get the grant, would we just reevaluate this item? So that we're not, paying the full 25, if indeed we don't get the grant, right? So we would take it out at that point, or would we just continue but pay the full amount?
That's the approach I would recommend taking, is that if we aren't successful with the grant, that we try again the following year.
Thank you.
Okay?
So my question, I guess, is out here, but also I think towards Rob. Rob, do you know if our Arts Council is ready to take on a project like this,
Yeah.
even with Bravo?
You've already
ready
met
for
with
it?
Bravo. Yeah.
Excellent.
So they probably will be.
Just want to make sure we've got the capacity and the people bought into doing it before we start earmarking money for it. So excellent.
Yep.
Okay. Both the city hall and police servers need to be replaced. I know this isn't a fun purchase. We would propose, instead of replacing those with physical servers, that we move to a cloud-based server. Since we are planning to do both city hall and the police station, we would also propose moving the fire department to a cloud-based server. The cost split over 2 fiscal years, or the total cost is $39,500. We'd split this over 2 fiscal years. We would fund $18,000 in the current budget year. Just so you know how we are coming up with those funds is the police department has spent less money than anticipated on capital equipment this year. So that frees up about $18,000 we'd spend on that project. And then we'd budget for $21,527. Just a quick note, the change will reduce our maintenance cost on our physical servers and will reduce our cost by nearly $600 a month. So you'd have a pretty quick return on investment with that move.
Tech guy, is this a good move?
It's the only, I'm not the tech guy, but that's the only move.
I wouldn't,
I wasn't talking to you.
yeah,
Well,
I
know, but I've
wouldn't
seen-
say,
Servers have been there a long time.
yeah, I wouldn't say this, yeah, I plead the fifth, so.
The newest server is a little over 5 years old.
No, I agree that, but
Yeah.
moving from a CapEx to an OpEx model in the long term, based on the size and needs of our community, that's the only thing I have a hard time rationalizing in my head. That's just one of those things, but I will defer to the whoever made this recommendation. I understand the equipment's old, believe me. I've seen the equipment. I was shocked it was still humming along, so I just question moving to this model because there's a lot of additional logistics other than the black and white that you see between actual server infrastructure sitting there and doing its job. So that's my only thought, but I'm not an IT guy. I'm a city council member right now.
Maybe we could get some in-kind from you.
Yes.
I still think we need to budget for a change because we do have an
No,
issue with the existing servers.
There's no argument from that perspective. Obviously, Chelsea knows I've had a lot of conversations with her about the IT support we get for the city, some of my concerns with it. So I think this is a need. We could probably just have some conversations on the best way to make sure that we are getting what we need.
Okay. For capital equipment, we've budgeted the following amounts for capital equipment for the police department, $37,500, fire department, $165,000, and the public works department, $185,000. I'm going to allow the department heads to tell you a little bit about those equipment purchases later on tonight. Next, I want to talk a little bit about city staffing needs. I want to have this conversation with the council of what is in the budget for new staff. And when I am done here, I think that would be a good break for dinner, and then we will continue, and Andrew will go over quite a few slides with you about taxes and valuations. So the 27 budget, we're proposing an additional full-time paramedic firefighter, a part-time fire position. This part-time fire position would be to have 3 people at the station 1 day a week, and we've identified that day would either be Saturday or Sunday. The cost to have a 3rd person at the station from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 1 day a week is about $22,000. Carla is going to talk a little bit about continuing to increase that later on this evening, but what we have in the budget, we were only comfortable proposing 1 day a week. Part-time Parks Department, this is the position that we talked about on Monday night's work session. So these are the 3 new proposed staff additions that we have. I do want to just point out that this does not align with the city's staffing plan, and I think that we should evaluate that. In 27, the staffing plan identified a full-time public works employee and a full-time building inspector without significantly increasing rates, I couldn't add those positions into the budget. So let's talk a little bit about the building inspector position. The city brought building inspections in-house back in 2023. We hired Cody Olson as our building and zoning official. And we kind of always knew that we might need to grow that department based off of building permits. As of today, the need is not there, but with building inspections, you would have revenue that would offset the cost of that position. So while it's not in next year's budget, I think that would be an easy thing to add should we need to add it. We had the same conversation last year at the budget work session. Does anybody have questions about that?
At what additional level of adding new homes, new businesses, are we gonna hit that mark where you need the help?
It's hard to gauge what that will look like. There's so many factors that'll play into it as far as the economy and just what's happening in the city. I really don't know what that threshold would be. I know Chelsea and I have talked, it's very seasonal. It's gonna be very peaky. And with limited data in my 2 years here, it's hard.
Okay, but you're not foreseeing yourself being dramatically overworked this year to the point where,
I think the problem's gonna be by the time I'm there, it's gonna be too late to hire and it won't be beneficial. So
Sure.
It's a hard balance to find what that'll be.
and
You're gonna have time for training and all that to get up to speed to be effective. Likelihood that you find it certified inspector.
And what we do right now, when we've got more work than you can handle, is we contract that out? Or have we not hit that?
We haven't really had to utilize that outside of commercial plan review today.
Mike, will this, not only what Cody was talking about and Nick, but the other full-time public works, is that gonna put the new person in a feeling of a detriment based on that staffing, or do you believe it'll?
We manage.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. You always have.
So, thank you for that, because I appreciate that fact.
Of course. Yeah, I know.
So, does this hurt a little bit? Yeah, it does. We've grown, the city's grown. Public Works, so the position we had in this year was for just to catch up, keep up, that type of thing. All the duties we do, daily tasks, that's what we're doing. So can we wait another year? Probably, but I guess one of my parting comments would be, we really need to figure this staffing thing out so we can really move forward. Because in my opinion, and I know everybody will have their own situations, but I already feel we're behind and will always be behind. And I know that's kind of a city thing. But we really need to think about putting these people on when we need them, and kind of have a plan for that. And I know this year, we've talked with Chelsea, and I understand it, but I just don't want it to go too far down the road, because it really will be detrimental. All of a sudden, you're not getting things done, and our group of guys like to get things done and move forward. And when you can't do that, it just feels like you're behind and you're taking complaints when you don't need to, So that's kind of where we're coming from.
I totally understand.
So, would I like it? Yes. Do I understand it? Yes, that we can this year, but we really need to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. You always have done a great job with what you never, don't complain, you just do it. And that essentially what you said is what every year you kind of say, and then you just get it done. So I appreciate that.
And, we talk about efficiencies and stuff like that, and I know this whole group does it. We don't just go out there and do things. We think about efficiencies, and one of the best things that I can bring up is the council has always allowed us the equipment and the snow plows. those type of things, but you can only do so much of that before you're out of efficiencies, right? And you just have to put that person on, but I think we all do a great job at trying to figure those things out, do with less if we can, but we're kind of all bumping into that growth factor right now.
Yeah, and you're getting edged out by the essential, right? Not everybody needs it, but essentially we're saying, we need to have a paramedic EMT, and the part-time parks, because that's the hand that we're playing right now, right? It's the cards. So appreciate it, Mike.
I do want to spend a little bit of time just talking about this briefly tonight. So you see what's in the proposed budget for addition of staff. Just sharing my perspective a little bit on the city staffing issue recently. I do want to acknowledge, I think that every single department has a lean staff. And I think that we should really pride ourselves on that, because you don't want to have departments that are overinflated. You never want that in local government. Having a lean staff can be challenging at times, but I do think the city council over the past 5 years has done a really nice job adding staff. We try to add 1 to 2 full-time employees each year, and that's been fairly manageable from a budget perspective. I do want to thank the council for acknowledging this, and I don't want you to think that those staff additions are taken for granted. I do want to take an opportunity to discuss with the city council that I do want to further challenge the staff on this topic. I am not stating we don't need more people. I do think we can be pushed to look for better efficiencies in our processes. I think that we can make sure our people are maximizing their time at work and exhausting other efforts before just adding, or before we just say we need more people. I think some small adjustments could reduce the burden placed on existing staff. So I want to say that I think we all could be challenged to make sure that we're doing everything we can before we just add staff. So given that we are talking a little bit tonight about property tax reform, I also want to start having conversations with our surrounding cities about shared resources. I'm not saying this out loud to alarm anybody. I'm not wanting to put anybody on notice, but the other metro cities are having these conversations about sharing staff and sharing resources. And I think we should always be willing to be a part of the conversation. I don't know that this is the right solution for Polk City. And I know that that could be a difficult conversation we have, but I think we want to be at the table to have those conversations. If it's not a valid option, we don't have to make the changes, but we could listen and see if that were an option. I've recently caught wind that the cities of Johnston, Grimes, West Des Moines, and Urbandale are talking about shared resources. I don't exactly know what that looks like. But given that we all know that the legislature is going to have some sort of property tax reform bill that goes into effect this year, I think it's worth having that conversation or being a part of those conversations. Any questions about that?
There's draft legislation out there, I think, that is pushing, I think it's more aimed at smaller communities, but looking at this exact topic of sharing those resources between different communities. So I think it's worth us talking about, especially if it's something that might end up being foisted upon us.
Okay. Okay, last slide. Other staffing positions that did not make the proposed budget. City engineer, I want to spend a little time talking about this. We spend a significant amount of money with Snyder and Associates, and I think we all recognize that. It's a common expense for local governments to pay for good engineering and good planning. With that said, I don't believe we're ready to hire a single city engineer in Polk City. Engineers have specialties, they have specialty experience and background, and I think when the day comes that Polk City is ready to hire a city engineer, we really need to talk about hiring at least 2 of them. So just to give you an idea, for basic engineering services, that's attending meetings, that's reviewing site plans, reviewing plats, and answering technical questions. So just kind of like the day-to-day stuff. We spend approximately $75,000 a year with Snyder and Associates, just on the basic general engineering items. The city does also contract with Snyder and Associates for development-related work. Nearly all of this, so if they review, provide oversight for private development, plats, site plans, etc., Snyder bills us and we bill the developer directly. So we're kind of used as a pass-through. Where we spend a higher amount of money with Snyder is for design and construction of capital projects. If we were to hire 1 to 2 engineers, let's just say this day comes where I think we're ready to hire a city engineer, we would still have to outsource capital project design. I have spoke with a few cities that have city engineers on staff. Grimes and Pleasant Hill have a handful of engineers on staff, 2 or 3. They specifically do not design projects. They still outsource that work to a firm. What my thought is that it's not in this proposed budget for 2027, but I think one next logical step Polk City could take would be to consider hiring a community development director who has a planning background. So instead of someone that focuses on designing projects, their specialty is reviewing plats and site plans. So this could offset some of the money we spend with Snyder and Associates. My best estimate to add a community development director between salary and benefits would range between $150,000 and $160,000 a year. So I don't think that bringing it in-house is necessarily going to save any money. I don't think it's a business decision like we made when we brought building inspections in-house. So I did not add that position to the proposed budget. I think one of the concerns I have is that development has slowed down a little bit since about the fall of 2025. We had this peak development in 24 and 25 where we approved a lot of plats mostly for residential, and development seems to be slowing down a little bit. Planning and zoning went 3 months without meeting at the end of 2025. So if that's just kind of showing you that we did not have submittals. My rationale for not adding the position is I don't think it's the right time, given that development has slowed down. But I do think we need to evaluate this on a year-to-year conversation around budget time. I know this continues to be brought up. I don't think we're ready to hire a city engineer. I think a logical step, though, might be to hire a community development director someday. And then the last thing that is not in the budget, which I've heard from some of you individually, I don't have a communications person in the fiscal year 2027 budget. I still have a little concern that we don't have full-time work for that position. I think it could be a dual person if they have the right skill sets where they do other things for the city, but that position did not make it into the fiscal year 27 budget.
So I would like to talk about this sooner rather than later. I don't, not in the sense that pushing back on we're to this point versus your assessment that we're not. I would really like to validate the approach of when we're gonna wait until we get to the point where we can add to, because a couple things, so I need to look again. Our total outlay to Snyder is well over $500,000. And I know that's a decent pass-through, but I also don't think that we can treat it as a pass-through because go back to the survey, go back to a lot of developer comments. When you bill for something to a third party that's paid for by yet another third party, they question the costs of those items. And we've heard that a lot, where Snyder's requiring things that they don't see a whole lot of value in. And I think that we see a good amount of that. So whether it's eaten up by the $75,000 that we're paying for them to be in meetings or some of these studies, I do think incrementally getting to a position of some kind to get a little bit more of our interests spoken for. There's a good amount of value in that. I think we'll also find that there are some of these things that we require that aren't always value add on some of these developments. So and there's benefit to that of us, not just as a pass-through cost to developers. So
So with what you're talking about, we bring something in-house, we get that $75,000 we pay upfront, plus some of those pass-through costs that we're eventually sending on to Snyder. But you're thinking we would not be passing on as much of those costs if we were doing that in-house?
having an advocate with expertise changes our ability to, I don't, you know.
I'm not arguing with your premise. I agree with your premise. I'm thinking that if we're trying to make this make sense financially though too, there's gonna be less pass-through dollars if we're not doing some of the same things that Snyder does. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that overall number that we're trying to account for drops if we bring it in-house and drop some of those extra things that Snyder does that developers don't find value in. So I agree with you. I just want to make these numbers make sense, and this probably isn't the time or place
No, I
for
agree.
that, but
And
your point is valid.
bucketing these to, because it's what is the role and then what is the person's expertise? Now, would it be nice to say that the model that we applied with Cody, where we got somebody, and everything that I'm about to say, Cody, is a compliment, so hopefully it comes out that way. Fortunately, I have to give that caveat more than I need to, but we hired you knowing you didn't know everything that you needed to do your job, but you were more than capable of getting there on some of that stuff. And taking that same approach, I know it's more stringent on the engineering side. I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but are there things that we can find someone that can know enough experience and knowledge coming in and then learn a few things as time goes by, some specialties, some certifications, whatever, and then feel comfortable about some of these studies and some of these recommendations and some of these requirements that we see that nobody up here as an engineer is going to be able to validly push back on that level of expertise on the other side would make me feel a lot better. So I know that's a difficult ask and it is a leap, but we've been scared of the unknown here, and I think we're getting to the point where it's costing us. It's costing us reputationally, it's costing us dollar-wise, and it's also inhibiting some of the things that we want to do a little bit better, because there are things that you know, this person could also help with as well. So, but equally likely, you know, you don't make the right hire, and all the things that I say aren't true, and we're, you know, so I get the reticence, but,
You're saying they all can't be Cody's.
well, yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
So I will make a comment. So I agree with what you're saying here. I would like to have the conversation. Again, right now is not the time, but what I would like to see is not 12 months from now, like 6 months from now, we start having deeper working sessions talking about this. So when we're here in a year, we understand what our direction is going to be. That would be my ask. I guess my only comment on the surface is I feel like we could bring it in-house, but the outlay of expense is going to be ultimately more than what we're paying now. And the way my brain's working, because what I heard is we're still going to have to contract Snyder to do certain things, right?
If you hire someone, they cannot design capital projects. Like one person cannot design capital projects. So if you're looking at the $500,000 expense per year, I would guess 300,000 of that is capital projects. You are still going to outsource that to a firm.
I do agree, though, the soft benefit would be in having someone part of our city family that would be able to understand what our needs and requirements are a little bit better. I'm not saying that Snyder doesn't understand that, but would have a little bit more, understand what the needs of the city are and businesses and so on and so forth. But like I said, when I heard you talking, Chelsea, I just felt like the dollar amount would be more than what we're currently paying.
It's very possible.
So I think it'd be worth our while to have these conversations 6 months in to see, because if it makes sense and, even if it's a little bit more, outlay of expense, maybe there is more ROI in the long run. So we just need to have those conversations.
And we always look to you to bring it to us when it's needed, or forecasting. You see something's coming on the horizon and you feel like it's a good time to do that. We always trust in you to bring that to us.
Yeah, I guess my last comment, sorry to cut you off, Dave, was I am concerned too about the peaks and the valleys, right? So, we can't foretell the future, and I'd hate to have, be paying top dollar for someone to be here and they're being utilized 25% of the time. That's the benefit with, consulting services. You consume those and you pay for them when you need them and you don't pay for them when you don't. So that's one of the benefits in my mind when you engage in that model.
Okay. I think this is a great stopping point. Who's hungry? We'll take a quick break. Can we start back up in 10, 15 minutes? We'll let everybody use the restroom, grab dinner, and then Andrew is going to take over. So thank you.
Get it underway.
Be sure and use the microphone.
I will try my best.
There's no try.
So first, we're going to look at the consolidated tax breakdown, where your taxes exactly go. For the North Polk School District, that is 47% goes to the school district, 27.5 goes to the city of Polk City, 23 to the Polk County, 2% to DMAC, and 0.5 for the Polk County assessor. If you are in the Ankeny School District, that looks more like 43% for the school district and 29.6% for the city. This graph illustrates year-over-year percentage growth in both regular and debt service taxable valuations. As you can see here, the last couple of years have been pretty low in regular taxable valuations. Under Senate File 2442, regular taxable valuations can only grow up to 2.75% before we get penalized. I think it's 1% after of your general property taxes, after 2.75%, 2% after 4%, and 3% after, I think, 6%. So the city strategically puts more into TIF each year to remain under that 2.75%. This does constrain our general fund though, but does alleviate those penalties. This is the FY26 property tax comparison, the levy rate. So Polk City sits at $11. The 20 surrounding metro communities, the average is 12.28. So we're right in the middle of the pack there, still under the average. This is the tax levy rate for cities between 4,000 and 8,000 residents. The average is $14.87. We are $3.87 below that. We are the 8th lowest out of the 55 cities between 4,000 and 8,000 residents.
Andrew,
Go ahead. Sorry.
did I hit the button first?
No.
No, just kidding. What would you say that is why is that the case? Why?
We do a great job.
Yeah, I know that would be the default answer that anybody, but
Oh, my screen's gone.
because of our uneven commercial versus residential, that we're getting a 90-10, or we're not even to that, are we? But just curious how are we able to do this?
I think we do operate quite lean. I think when I started, it was $11, and we do our best to keep it at $11. I think we have a really good TIF strategy, and we do think long and hard before upping that levy rate. We kind of look at all the other options, what we can do. We do have quite high utility rates, so you'll see we use our utility funds maybe more than these cities. I don't know, but there's quite a few factors that go into it. The reason it's hard for us to get below that $11 is because bigger cities have economies of scale. They have, they just have a lot of things that we don't there.
I appreciate it, thank you.
So knowing that we're operating with the 810 levy, looking at all these other cities with much higher, are they all just operating with a higher debt service, or what is actually making up those differences?
I haven't dived into what's inside of the levy, but I think it's kind of similar. It's just we have the higher utility rates. Maybe they have lower ones. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're bloated. I don't know. But that's just the way it is.
I think we got to be a little bit more careful with this recently. I mean, candidly, it's still relevant, and I'm not challenging it, but our average home was 400,000, which was high 6-7 years ago, and it's now probably closer to $600,000. So that same home, and so while the rate has stayed the same, the valuations on residential, commercial, everything has gone through the roof, and a lot of factors for that. So again, I mean, even that calculation isn't as simple as as the valuation times the rate, but nonetheless, holding the rate steady isn't holding taxes steady.
Correct. I have a slide that kind of answers that, so we'll get there. This is property tax comparisons, your property cap tax classification breakdown. As you can see on the left is Polk City. We have an 89.65 residential tax base, and the state of Iowa average is 56%. This figure may look lower than last year to some of you. I think it was 91% last year, but mainly it's lower due to the rollback percentage changing more than anything we've done. If you look at the assessed valuations of Polk City, it ranges between 92 and 95% residential. Obviously, the importance of commercial property, it lowers the burden on the residential taxpayer. They typically pay more taxes, 90% rollback versus a 45% rollback on the residential. And then they require less services, so that's the importance there. Going into the budget and finances, here's the slide I was talking about, Rob. So in FY23, according to, this is the annual household impact of property taxes and utility bills on the average home value. So this data is from the Polk County Assessor on their assessed valuations. So in FY23, the average assessed valuation of a home in Polk City was $297,000. That is now increased 50% to $416,000. So you're not far off in what you were saying. The rollback has changed year over year. So the actual taxable valuations of those homes have gone from an average of $161,000 to $185,000. So that's only a 15% increase on taxable valuations. We've kept the levy rate at $11 for those years. So the city portion of their property taxes on the average home in FY27 is $2,038. This is a 2.92% increase on FY26. The average home uses about 4,100 gallons of water and sewer a month. That totals out for about $1,600 a year. And then storm water, $66, garbage and recycling, $200. Utilities have increased year over year about 6%. So that is reasonably high. That is mainly due to joining CIWW. We've now got that debt service. The water tower debt service is now, we're paying on that in full this year. So a total impact year over year, you're looking at about 4.3% to the average resident there.
I just want to point out, I think we raised our levy rate. I'm fairly certain it used to be 1039, and
Oh, maybe that was 23, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in there then.
Okay.
10 something, sounds about right, yeah.
Okay.
Regardless, I mean, it is striking to me that what a citizen was getting in 23 is costing them $700 more now from 23 to 27, and that's a lot for some people.
Sure.
So again, none of this is slight to anybody or any department or any of that. I think that's something that we got to keep in mind when we're talking about some of these changes.
We do, but we also have to account for the fact that we see increased costs year over year inflation as well. And we're not making that up by increasing our levy anywhere, even if those, as a result of those valuations going up.
We're not.
Cover those inflationary costs.
We are still getting more funds because of the valuation change.
This is the FY26 general fund cost per capita. The average is $894. We're sitting at $752. This kind of demonstrates that we are operating quite a lean operation. Anything lower than this, you can look at maybe we're pushing maintenance off that we should be doing. So that's how I kind of look at it. But we are sitting next to cities like Waukee and Norwalk and Ankeny, so we're in good company, but I wouldn't like to see it get too much lower because then it's kind of a sign that maybe we're not spending enough in the general fund there. This is the general fund expenditure for FY '27. As you can see, the highest sector of the pie chart is public safety at 61%. That includes things like fire, police, building, animal control, your emergency sirens. So that's all included there. Then you've got culture and recreation at 21%. That is your library and your parks and rec department. General government at 10%, which is your policy and administration, your mayor and council, your city attorney. Community and economic development is 10%. Oh, no, sorry, 6%. Couldn't read that. That is your economic development costs, your engineering, your developer fees. And then public works at 2%. Now that's just a small portion, a small share of their public works salaries, your brush piles in there, just a very small portion. Health and social services is one line item, it's mosquito spraying. And that's how they want to separate it, so that's there. General fund revenue, what funds these general fund expenses? The majority of the general fund expenses are paid for with general property taxes at 54%. Transfers in at 21%. These transfers in comes from the lost fund and other employee benefits and the TIF fund. Charges for services at 10%. In the general fund, this is mainly from parks and rec fees, library fees, rescue payments, fire rescue payments. Use of money and property is 6%. That is interest on savings. It's companies renting space on our water tower for cell antennas. Then you've got licenses and permits at 5%. That is your building permits. Other city taxes at 2%. That is your hotel and motel tax and your utility franchise tax. And your intergovernmental at 1%, which is things like township contributions to the fire department and library contributions from, I believe it's the state. Proposed operating expenditure for FY '27. This is all your expenditures outside of capital projects. Business type activities are your largest one at 35%. That is essentially all your utilities, your water, your sewer, stormwater, garbage and recycling. Then you've got public safety, debt service, which is our loan repayments and all of our debt we currently have at 13%. Economic and community and economic development at 9%, culture and rec at 8%, public works at 6%, general government 4%, health and social services 0.001, I believe. Here's your proposed operating revenues for FY '27. Again, it kind of mirrors the operating expenses. Charges for services is your highest, that's your utilities. General property taxes at 24%. We get about 14% of our operating revenue from TIF taxes, 14% from intergovernmental grants. That's a lot of it's to do with phase 1, or just the trail in general and the roundabout. So we get a lot of grant funding for that. Other city taxes at 8%. That is your lost taxes, your hotel, motel, and your utility franchise. Use of property and money at 3%, licenses and permits at 2%. And here is your budget by function, which is your entire budget, including your capital expenditure. Exactly the same as what I've just read off, except from capital expenditure is now 37%. And then it's your total revenue sources, very similar again to your operating revenue, but we're recognizing of the financing sources, which is your loan proceeds. Now we're going to switch to the budget in brief. that gonna show on this or? I'm an IT guy.
This is just what's
Can
happening
you see
when
it
we.
on? No, you
We
can't.
have,
Okay.
we have it on here, so I mean, it's,
Yeah,
Waste too much time.
he's trying to go to this other attachment that we had in the.
oh, I see.
Yeah,
I got you.
I
Switch
assume that.
attachments, did it?
I assume you're trying to bring up the 9-page document.
90? Yeah.
9.
9.
It's 90.
Yeah,
I got the extended version. Yeah.
those Brits, right?
Can you all pull that up, that 9-page document?
Yep.
Just go through it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll go with it. Okay, so if you can open your 9-page document to page 1. So we're looking at revenue year over year, all the way from FY23 actuals to FY27 budget. You've got a percentage change there and a dollar change. I'm just going to quickly highlight the major changes. So you'll see our TIF property taxes have increased 33% this year. That is mainly due to trying to stay under that Senate File 2442 requirement. And really, we're paying the regional park now with TIF. That is quite a significant debt service to pay for. So we had to increase what we were collecting there. Licenses and permits have increased 24%. Cody will speak more about this later, but we're expecting our building permits to significantly increase on the FY26 budget. Use of money in property has increased 48%. This is mainly due to, I'd probably say, better scheduling on our part. We're now into a lot of CDs with construction draw schedules. We know exactly what we're going to receive. Before we were a bit, well, are the rate's going to go down? This is, just a savings account. Will it change the next day? So we're a bit more invested into CDs right now. We know what we're going to get. We're quite confident in that number. Looking back at FY25 and FY24 figures, we're right around that number. So confident in that. Intergovernmental's down 39% on intergovernmental, yep, is down 39% on the fiscal year 26. That is mainly due to receiving or hoping to receive these grants in FY26 to do with the roundabout and the trail, and then we'll receive the other portion of those in FY27. Charges for services is up 10%. That's mainly due to utility rate increases. And then other financing sources is down 54%. And we borrowed for the park in FY26. We borrowed for CIWW, and then in FY27, I believe we're just going to borrow for that trunk sewer if it happens at the 1.8. This is a budget year over year, comparing FY26 to FY27. So, excuse me. Again, I'll just go over some of the big differences and highlight those for you. Police has gone up 14% year over year. That's mainly due to a decision made in FY26 on headcount. In FY26, we decided to add an additional officer. Then they had an officer with military duty, and we didn't recognize that dollar amount in FY26. We're recognizing it now in FY27. Fire is going up 19%. This is, again, just adding additional personnel. Fire chief will go over that in detail on her slides. Brush piles down 50%, thanks to the new hours that we have in place. That's helped reduce that greatly. Parks has gone up 28%. Again, Jason will talk more in detail, but that's mainly to do with regional park maintenance that we didn't previously have, Four Seasons Festival costs. Then we've got economic development totals down 33%. We used to give 75,000 to the chamber. We no longer do that. We've replaced it with a couple of things, and we'll probably replace it with some more when you guys have your conversations and make some recommendations there. And then TIF and economic development is up 27%. This is mainly down to a couple of developer agreements that have come on. That's Ace Hardware and Faction Investments. Their property value is now increased from construction, so now we're rebating more of a portion to them. We've got debt service has increased 15%. That's mainly down to the regional park.
Real quick, do we have any other, in the next couple of years, anything else, big projects coming off TIF?
We have Deer Haven coming up in FY '27. Deer Haven, that's the last year for Deer Haven, right? Yep. So Deer Haven will come off in FY '27
Which is the last residential.
inside of Polk City.
Yeah.
And then we have the county whitetail, right? Yeah.
Thanks.
Capital projects down 25%. Previously, we budgeted for the entire project, knowing that it's not going to be spent. We budgeted for the whole amount. This year, we're taking a different approach of budgeting kind of what we're expecting to spend in that fiscal year. So I think we're actually doing more than we have previously, but the way the budget looks, it looks like a little decrease there. And if we go to enterprise funds, our utilities, water utility, budget is up 25% this year. That is mainly down to three things. It's your full debt service on your water tower, your full debt service on CIWW buy-in, and then Saylorville Expansion 1 they've started charging us for that as well through CIWW. So three things we did not have before. That is total expenses down 7% for the year. Budget by function and fund on your next page. I'm not going to go over this, but I included it in case anyone wanted to see it, but it's those same expenses and revenues, but split by how they're split by the funds, in case anyone's interested there. And then the fund balance forecast on page 7. So right there you have the estimated fund balance as of July 1, 2026, your revenues, your transfers in, your expected expenditures, your transfers out, and your ending fund balance, and whether that's a surplus or a deficit, and a percentage change on the estimated balance at the beginning of the year. So again, to highlight some of the major ones, general fund, of course, is predicted to be a surplus of 42,000. Local option sales tax is 179,000 surplus. Some of you may think that's quite large. We do have some concern. Ankeny is planning to join Lost. Have they already joined or planning?
They're going to have it on the ballot.
They've got a ballot.
Yes, for the residents to consider. That could decrease the amount we get.
They're kind of one of the last ones, right?
Yes.
We are the last one.
That vote in September?
Say that again?
Is the vote in September?
November.
I think it would be November.
It's got to be in November now.
Yeah.
So we're reasonably confident in our 1.2 million. We've spoke with people from the state of Iowa and they gave us a figure a little higher than that, but there's always unknowns with people's analysis. So we've kept a little wiggle room there, and it can be used for, estimates. We've had engineers' estimates come in below what the bid is and things like that. So we've kept some wiggle room there. TIF surplus of 235,000. Again, we over collected this year. We don't know what they're going to do at the legislative session this year. And then Senate File 2442. That's the reason there. A surplus of 232,000 in LMI. This does not include what we spoke about on Monday about the sidewalk project and the sump pump collector project yet. Haven't had a chance to add them in. I'll get them in for the the next budget work session, but just full transparency there.
Quick question.
Yep.
With Deerhaven coming off next year, how much are we expecting our LMI fund to decrease in growth?
So Whitetail Ridge still pays a good portion of the LMI. In FY '27, so this current budget year, we're not receiving any more LMI from Deerhaven. We've already met that threshold. I think it was like a maximum of 500,000. We've already reached that, so it's all TIF money. So what you're seeing right now for FY '27, 290,000, I would predict it would be a little increase on there each year. So still a substantial amount of money more than we can spend currently, so with that.
How much did we put towards the water tower from
million.
LMI funds?
$1 million.
Okay.
So, yep. Capital projects down 90%, $3.6 million. Again, we borrowed for the park in FY '26. We're building it in '26 and '27. Same with a few other projects. The sewer utility fund is a surplus of 146,000. That is quite a lot. We can certainly look at doing a rate study between now and the end of the fiscal year, but at the same time, we're building trunk sewers. We're using sewer revenue to pay for those debts. So instead of building a trunk sewer and then having to hike prices quite a lot, we're going for a slow and steady increase. So the sewer utilities predicted to increase 5.5% this year. And then that gives us a total fund deficit of 2.7 million. Not worried about this. This is mainly all down to do the capital projects fund, so. And then the last 2 pages are transfers. I won't read them all out, but just to go over a couple, so you know what lost funds go to. So lost fund goes to, a piece of paper to tell me, property tax release, police and fire department equipment, street repairs, trail and roundabout projects, the TIF transfers, TIF funds admin program, town square master plan, Northside Drive turn lane, a large portion of our debt service, the police station and library schematics, and economic development. And they're probably the main funds that are used for transfers. And with that, that is my presentation. And now I think it's department heads, right?
I think we're ready.
All right.
Let's see if we can get the PowerPoint back up,
Sure.
though. I think this is what the issue is. There we go.
I just cannot get that to come up on here.
Oh, yeah, on your phone. Yeah, you must have just a bad link. There it is.
It's on one.
Start.
Do you all see it on your screen?
Yeah.
Everybody but James. There he is.
Mine's up now.
Don't get me started on that.
All right, for the police department, we have a total operating budget of 1 million, or 1.7 million. 1.4 of that goes towards personnel costs, and then 310,000 for operations. I have a few different, as you can see, about 8 bullet points of different line items I wanted to discuss. Go over changes that were made and basically what kind of goes into them as well. So we'll start with the training. That one increased from 16,000 to 27,000. And that covers ongoing state training requirements, specialty schools. Like for an example, we're gonna send someone to a driver instructor school this year. Increase in ammunition needs. Part of that's for the CERT position we added, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then with Kevin coming back from Syria, we'll be at 10 full-time, so it'll be more shooters, I guess. And the ILEA firearms training requirements are changing. That will require more from us.
Other costs under training include recertification, like taser cartridges, less lethal rounds that we have to shoot every year. And then we also build in the expense to send someone to the academy. We've been doing that for the last, I think, 2 or 3 years and usually use it every time. The next would be building repair and maintenance. I increased that from 2,000 to 5,000. I know we've talked before about some increasing maintenance needs with our facility. This past year alone, we've had to replace the exhaust fan in our evidence room. We've had card access strikes fail on us. Light fixtures need to be replaced, and then the leaking roof. Rent and leased equipment. That decreased a little bit from 59 to 43,000. I'm not sure, like Rob and Dave, you probably remember, we used to lease our patrol cars. We are cycling out the last one of those leases, so that'll get paid out of, it's about $8,000 at the end, and that'll be paid out of this coming budget year versus the full amount that was around 20,000 for the full year. And the rest goes towards our annual flock and payments for our body cams and in-car cameras. The CERT position, this is new. Wasn't quite sure where to start with this. I kind of based it off what we budgeted for the K-9 program when we had that, which was $5,000. I guess we'll see after this year, we'll have a better idea of what this will really entail, but I do know it will go towards extra trainings when they bring in guest instructors. That's split amongst all the cities that participate. Equipment, and then our fee to participate in the program with West Des Moines. There was a 2080 agreement we had signed.
Can you give a quick blurb on what exactly the CERT program is?
Oh, sorry. That stands for the Suburban Emergency Response Teams, basically a SWAT position. The next is case investigations. It's a pretty low line item. What we basically use that for is when we do blood draw search warrants, we have to have a phlebotomist come out to draw the blood. Those costs increased this year, not by much. I think it's like $250 a call out. And then other things, we've used translators in the past. That comes out of this fund as well. Programs and services. This had a pretty significant increase. What we had been using it for is our safe evidence software, scheduling software, police legal sciences. It's like an online training portal that covers a lot of legal angles. And then the addition of Lexipol. With that, adding Lexipol in, basically it's a policy management program, I guess you could call it. It includes training portal, reporting on our training, officer wellness portal, portal, and grant assistance where they identify and help us write grants for things we might need. That piece, the onboarding part of that is about $24,500, and then annual cost will be about $8,500 going forward. It's commonly used amongst the other departments in the metro. Miscellaneous contract work, that was just a small increase. What you use that for would be the city of Des Moines. We have a Homeland Security agreement with them. So it's the fee for that, which is a little over $8,000 annually, but that's assessed on population. So that will change on us and increase over time. And then the other piece that comes out of this goes to Polk County for dispatching services. That first came out last year. We had prior to that not been paying anything. And then we discovered, I think years before last year, we had signed an agreement that we would start paying in like 3 years or something like that. Our cost share of this is $33,500, and Chief Holgriff and I share that, split that bill. The last piece is capital equipment. Only really 2 items in here, and one we kind of discussed already. The big one for the police department is a handgun replacement. And then the second piece would be to complete the server migration to the SharePoint cloud. So I think we have 21,000 outstanding from what I can't pay out of my capital equipment budget this current fiscal year. So, and the reason that money turned up is we had budgeted for a Tahoe patrol car, realized we didn't need to replace one of the frontline cars. So I got that Traverse as an admin car, so that decreased the cost quite a bit.
You guys give any thought to another K-9 unit or?
Yeah, we definitely aren't like tossing the program out. It's more of I wanted to get a spot with CERT and offer that to them for a specialty position. But the K-9 program is still an ability. I think we definitely wanted to kind of sit back and assess the costs and return we got from it, which I really think was pretty good. But the other key piece is having someone interested in doing it versus the CERT position. I have half my department wanting it, so. Got any other questions? Some other bigger line items out of the police department include like vehicle operations and repairs. That's pretty costly out of that 310,000. Our utilities, phones, attorney fees, and tech services. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
I hate to stop sharing because of what we experienced, but I'm gonna have to get out of here. Just Chief Hogriff is at the National Fire Academy and okay, Chief, are you ready? Can you turn your volume up a little bit? Yeah, I can barely hear you. Hang on for a second. Here we go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Hang on, I'm gonna pull the PowerPoint back up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
There, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, hang on, I'm gonna start the PowerPoint back
Technical
up.
difficulties.
Yeah, always,
Okay.
always.
I'm on my phone, so now I need to try. It's on my, that one's not working.
Laid plans.
There we go.
Okay, Chief, your first slide is pulled up. Go ahead.
All right, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. First of all, I just want to thank you all for, again, for recognizing the need to strengthen the staffing of the fire department and for your support in adding the new lieutenant position last month that we are adding. We're really excited about that position and the growth of the department. Like Chelsea mentioned, we'd like to ask for a full-time firefighter paramedic. Our goal is to continue to grow the fire department so we can provide the best coverage for our community. We're requesting that full-time position. So that would bring our total full-time staff to 6, 1 full-time chief, 1 lieutenant, and then 4 firefighter paramedics. This position would help reduce daily staffing gaps and improve the reliability of our emergency response. Between that new lieutenant position and this new proposed full-time role, our part-time salary cost will decrease by $95,000 from the fiscal year 2026. before considering any additional part-time staffing options that I'm about to outline. When I first joined the department, our goal was to simply staff the station during the day about 7 years ago. And then the next goal was to staff 24/7, which we did that. And, basically we can staff an ambulance 24/7. But we really need to work on our next goal to staff a fire engine and ambulance. I do know that can't happen all at once. It's going to take a lot of time, planning, and fiscal responsibility. And, again, I want to emphasize how grateful I am that we are starting to move, in that right direction. So those, the other part-time position that Chelsea mentioned that she put in there was for one additional part-time position. So that's a third position during the day. And that would be 1 day a week, either on a Saturday or a Sunday. And that's when we struggle to, fill shifts, or when we need to have that third person there during the day to help get a fire truck out the door. The other options there, as you can see, ideally we need a third position every single day. But as you see, that's quite expensive, and I know that that's probably not possible, but that's the breakdown. And then if we want to make it, easier on fiscally, we can, try and do an 8-hour or every day, or just on weekdays an 8-hour, or on weekdays, on weekends, or just a Saturday. So that's just kind of a breakdown so you can see what it costs to introduce those part-time shifts. Basically, any of those options would help us better cover shifts when our full-time personnel are on vacation, military leave, or out sick. More importantly, they would allow us to consistently staff a fire engine without pulling the fire chief away from essential administrative and leadership duties to serve as a third firefighter on the truck. Also, adding this third part-time position would ensure that we can staff a second out medical response. When our primary ambulance is already committed on a call, I am left to the city for about an hour and a half alone. So if we did have this third position and I was around, we could staff 2 ambulances if a second ambulance call came out. Another concern I am worried about, with getting rid of some part-time positions, is that we may lose some of our valuable experience in some of our part-timers. We also get a lot of young firefighters, a place to start their careers and gain experience to grow into strong professionals. So reducing some of these part-time opportunities might limit this pathway and weaken our ability to develop some of these young firefighters. 65% of our calls do occur during the day, and daytime is when we have the lowest staffing. As you know, we have paid on-call members that do respond at night, but that is the least time that we do have calls. They do respond at weekends, and we are working on changing our policies so that our paid on calls do respond during the day. So we are trying to fill those gaps as well with paid on call members. Since we do some cross staffing as well, since we are short staffed. So basically what that means is when our ambulance goes out the door, our fire truck goes out of service. And when our fire truck goes out the door, our ambulance goes out of service because we don't have enough people at the station. So since we started tying those units together, since July, our fire engine has been out of service for 210 hours, and our ambulance has been out of service for 28 hours. Last year, there were 29 calls that we could not respond to, and 29 calls mutual aid had to handle for us. A lot of those were second out or third out medicals that our ambulance was already on a call for. So basically, we need some more people, and like I said, I appreciate that we are starting to move forward, and you guys are supporting us, and our call volume has increased by 4%, and I believe with more people, the more it's going to continue to increase. So that's it on that slide. The next one's capital improvements. I know we've talked about this. The rescue boat, we're looking at about $125,000 for that. As you know, our boat is 21 years old. It is not very safe for our responders on Saylorville. It is more sufficient for Big Creek. We would probably plan to keep it for Big Creek. We did receive 3 quotes. The one that we're looking at for rescue boat is around $115,000 with about $10,000 worth of equipment. We have secured $20,000 from the Firefighters Association, and we have partnered with the Marina to do some fundraising this season, so we're really excited about that relationship. And then we're going to do some more fundraising the remainder of this year as well. So we're asking for the city to budget $90,000 for that. We do have bunker gear that's expiring. We have 29 helmets that expire. Each helmet is $425 a piece. We've got 5 gears that expire at $4,500 a piece. And we've got multiple, probably every set of boots are expired, but we're going to start at 10 pairs at $500 each. So we're asking for $40,000 for bunker gear. If you have questions, I can only hear if you talk into the microphone. That's all I got.
Okay.
So I guess I do have a couple questions. First off, Carla, I don't know if you could hear me. Can you?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so can you tell me again, if I have a medical emergency and we're already out on a call, what happens to my call then? What's the logistics of that?
So if it's during the weekday, I will respond, and the next closest ambulance will respond. So that will pull the next closest according to GPS. So that could be an Ankeny ambulance, or that could be a Johnston ambulance. So you could wait anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes for an ambulance.
So my expectation is you have a life and you're not there 365 days a year. So if you're not available, if I'm having a medical emergency and we're not available, then the time, the critical time could be increased from just a few minutes potentially up to significantly longer. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't really hear you.
No, it was kind of more of a rhetorical question, right?
Okay.
So this is one of the things that I've struggled with. I know individuals probably don't agree with my thinking process on this. I, for one, as an individual, I've had to use our EMS. I had an issue not too long ago when I moved into town. I was very thankful that they were able to get me to the hospital downtown. And if I would have had to wait a lot longer, thankfully it wasn't, life-threatening. I thought it was at the time. I do have medical issues, and I just hate to think that for me or any of our residents would be in a position that we couldn't provide those services to them in a time of need. If you look at some of our expenditures, I feel like this is a necessity. This is a requirement. We should figure out how to do this compared to some of these other things. If you look at the big picture, I know this is the big ask, but we're all human. We have families. We have mothers, sisters, children. I think it's a disservice if we don't do the best we can in our positions to make sure that we have funded coverage. So I'll get off my soapbox because, like I said, this is kind of personal to me because I had an issue and I was very thankful They were great, wonderful individuals. I couldn't ask for anybody better. But I had my elderly neighbor across the street, right? Love her to death. She's having problems, and I just could not think of her having to wait an extra 15, 30 minutes at most, right, if something happened. So I guess those are my thoughts. I mean, I would be totally supportive of trying to figure out how we make something work so we have coverage and we're not putting the dependency on people so they can't have lives, take times off, be with their family. So that's my little rant.
Hard to disagree with that. I mean, because it's very true. The unfortunate reality is and I'm one of the bigger, I'm just like you. Like, I've used them, not personally, but family has. I haven't, but family has. And same thing. I just don't know how we come up with 160 grand with the stringent budget that we have. So I'm not disagreeing with your thoughts. I'm looking at the quantifiable.
Well, I come back to, this is a need. This is not a want or like to have, this is a need. And again, if you look at the big picture of everything, I mean, this is tough choices for us to make, right? Could we find something, and I'm not asking for the 157,000, right? I know we've made great strides even the past few years that I've been on the console, and I applaud everyone for doing that. Even if we could and again, we're making great strides. If we could at least get closer to that where we have full coverage, and continue to do our best, there's somewhere in $22 million, I would think, that we could find from an operating fund to get some of this money. Go ahead, Rob, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I don't, disagree with your premise, and I applaud the effort. How do you prioritize a street project versus any PD or FD needs? It's difficult, all due respect to Mike, but they're different things, right? So, but we're staffed similar to how everybody in Ankeny and Grimes and these towns are staffed, where if an ambulance is out of service, it's the next station over, in the same way that Ankeny or Grimes or Granger is for us. So that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a fire after a heart attack, after a accident that could be catastrophic delays, and that's so I don't want to rationalize away any, but I also and I appreciate both chiefs pushing for the needs that they have. I don't know that a resident here is in any different position than some of these larger communities with a higher level of staffing, and would just think about it in the next station over, whether it's station 32 to 28 in Des Moines, and it's Polk City to Grimes or Polk City to Ankeny or wherever. It's just a different town.
No, I agree. I mean, I understand your perspective. I just feel like, we don't have to be like everybody else. I would argue, it's going to sound bad, so don't take it on the face value, but potentially could a life be, not worth, whatever we're going to pay here. Like I said, this is something I'm just emotional about, and I support it and wanted to make it known. I would argue that, $150,000 from the sports complex to cover this, right? Someone's potential life would be a little bit more important than I just use the sports complex as an example of potentially where we put our funds to. Like I said, obviously you could tell this is kind of close and emotional to me. I would like to continue having conversations. If it's not today, maybe it's next year, on how we continue to.
So what the fire department is asking for this year, what is budgeted here, is one full-time firefighter paramedic that's going to be staffed during the week, whenever they're needed exactly.
No, they would work shift, so they'd work 48 on,
Okay.
96 hours off.
Okay, so we're adding one full-time,
Correct.
And then we're adding one part-time, or we're moving one of our part-times from a less full hour schedule down? Chief talked about having savings from a part-time position, and I'm trying to circle that square.
So to fund the 2 full-time positions we're adding within this 5-month period, we have reduced their part-time salaries because those people are gonna work shifts the part-time people were working. What she would like is for a 3rd shift opportunity. So we have 2 people at the station at all times, plus chief. She'd like a 3rd spot so that she can get an engine out and not rely just on the fire chief. What we have in the budget is to have that 3rd shift, 1 12-hour shift per week, and it would be either Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
Okay. Carla, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Cody, I think it's your turn. I'm gonna stop this real quick and there we go.
I will do my best to try to make up a little time. My budget is relatively simple compared to most, very few changes. Looking to increase the expected revenue up 50,000 from 200,000. You can look down below there, last year's fiscal year was about 300,000. Currently, from those numbers year to date, that was in December. From what I've issued already, we're probably already over the 200,000. And that's 6 months through our fiscal year currently, so on pretty good path there. The added vehicle operations, just as kind of a cleanup item, inheriting the Tahoe as an inspection vehicle, just having something there that we can put expenses to. The inspections line is just adding some extra cost, anticipating some needed assistance from Safe Building. We have our agreement in place with them. Whether that's filling in for vacation time or just assisting with inspections that I can't keep up with. Primarily kind of looking to use them as a commercial plan review service. And an item to note with that, if they are used, typically that review fee is issued to the permit applicant, so it's kind of a wash. We do recoup that with the permit. Nothing really else unless there's any questions on the first slide here. And then just kind of quick numbers over the last couple years, just to note that those years are calendar years and not fiscal year. Permits are up about 52% from 24 to 25. The numbers there on the right side are new single families, so you can see we're kind of on a good trend there, up 36%. Anticipate that trend to continue. At any time that bottom could drop out. You just don't know with all the factors that play into it. Just kind of an anticipation of what's coming are a lot of the residential developments. Kind of looking at what's expected and what we've got for lots coming up. Kind of gives you a path on what my schedule might look like or could look like.
On the right-hand side, new permits, that's new residential home permits.
That's new single families, yep.
So Cody, real quick, for the Four Seasons, I thought we heard on Monday that that was a 200 and some number.
So it'd be Aspen Ridge Circle currently. That's part of the Four Seasons, which has been developed, so you can
Okay.
eliminate those numbers
Sounds good, thank you.
from the total. And then, like I say, we've got a lot of interest and kind of anticipate some commercial development here coming up. So that could suck a little more time out of my schedule. It's a little more in-depth for the plan review and inspection side of it, but
Your lips to God's ears.
hopefully, all that comes to fruition and the new single families stay on the right trend, so that's just kind of the outlook. And like we talked earlier with the staffing, we've always had that conversation that when the revenue's there and the time's right, it makes sense to add on. I've talked to other officials and surrounding municipalities. And part of something to be considerate of too is our ISO ratings for insurance. Once I get booked to where I'm completing so many inspections a day, some of those ratings could take a hit. So I don't know what that number is off the top of my head, but just something to be mindful of.
Saying our insurance gets more expensive when you hit
When
X
I'm
number of inspections.
overworked, it's basically saying the quality of my performance is gonna go down just for that, so.
There's a lot of factors there.
There is many factors, but,
Emergency response. Has our ISO rating changed in 5 years?
we'll be up for review or whatever you wanna call that here, I think this spring.
Okay.
We did a review when I first started, so about 2.5 years ago. And then they'll.
Did it change?
I don't believe it did.
Okay, I think it was,
Had gone up at one point, not too long ago.
when you say go up, it positive, yeah.
Maybe that's down, but
I,
I know it's changed recently.
Part of that
okay,
as well too. We're currently on the 18 iCode series. I will be starting that process to update to the 24 to kind of get in line with everybody else that's changed recently, which should help as well. Just trying not to get too far behind on that, so.
yeah,
Any other questions?
I mean, I think we need to advertise that if we have the opportunity. I know it used to be a positive in that your rates could go down. Now that doesn't happen anymore. It's less of an increase thing, and that's easier or harder to absorb. But nonetheless, that's it's a factor of infrastructure and response and all that, and which to me is a gauge of a lot of the functions that we do. So.
If there's any other questions, I can be wrapped up quick and on to the next.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks.
All right, good evening, folks. The Parks and Rec Department is looking at about $628,000 for this upcoming fiscal. That is an increase, like mentioned before. Staffing has increased, adding the recreation coordinator position, and then potentially the part-time position as well. A few other items I wanted to highlight, because of the regional park project getting started, phase 1 there, we will incur some additional mowing and chemical application costs, and I kind of broke those down there. It's going to be about $32,000. So a lot of that is attributed to the mowing of phase 1, which is about 14 acres, and mowing it in a way that promotes growth, especially in this first year of trying to establish turf. The fertilization to promote phase 1 growth, about $7,200. And then, outside of those 14 acres, a couple acres of impermeable paved surface, we're going to deal with, I'm going to say, roughly 35 to 40 acres of wild future development growth out there. So we do have 4 scheduled maintenance mows out there. So it's going to look like we're baling hay about 4 times a year. And I would like to make the council aware that, as these fields become playable, the mowing routine will change to, instead of growing, to active competition mowing, so twice a week versus once a week. And then as future phases get completed, we will have more fields, playing surface, common space that will also need mowed and chemical applications. Programs and services. With the addition of the recreation coordinator position, we do have the awesome
Just real
ability.
quick, Jason, all that's gonna be contracted out, same as everything else, right? We're not.
Correct, yes, right now those will be through Total Quality. Yep. So with Allison on board, we have the ability to offer more programs for Polk City. And within our cost recovery model, those increased expenses will result in offsetting revenue increases.
So quick question, Jason.
Yes, sir.
So just a logistics question, because I don't know. Is there any water costs associated or to promote growth for the first phase?
Yes, the fields will be irrigated. We do have irrigation coming out of the retention ponds.
Oh, okay.
And we expect that retention pond water to cover all of our irrigation needs?
It will be a dual purpose irrigation system. So if we hit a level in drought and we don't want that pond to go any further, we will have the ability to switch to city water.
Nice.
Okay.
And then I just kind of wanted to highlight some opportunities on the horizon. You know, not to rehash Monday too much, but there's the opportunity for clarity on special events moving forward. You know, what Fall Fest, Light Up Polk City, whether that farmer's market, you know, so opportunities there. Additional special events because of the Polk City Junction Trail. And then again, additional program opportunities because of that recreation coordinator position. The regional park being just around the corner, you know, we're gonna be able to offer more in-house things at that awesome facility. And then utilizing that, the Junction Trail too, it's really gonna be exciting what we can offer for programs in the next couple of years. I believe that's all I have. I can hand it over to Jamie, or I'm happy to answer any questions you guys got. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
So, good evening. So, I approached mine just a little bit differently. So my initial slide here is kind of going over our budget for the year. So our total operating budget is about $487,638. Like all of the other departments, most of that goes to salary and benefits. There's about $150,000 that we worked through in our budget. I focused here on kind of what people are getting from the library. So with our physical materials, the things that we circulate, the books, videos, magazines, hotspots, we're spending just shy of asking for just shy of $24,000 this year. Some of those line items I was actually able to reduce this year in this budget request based on where our spending has been the last couple of years. Most of that within youth books, and part of that is we just don't have the shelf space to continue to add more books. But just also the time it takes to pick out all of the books and things like that. The adult books line item has a slight increase, as well as the teen books. Those we were maximizing our spending on, but we also are incurring new shipping costs this year. Baker and Taylor was our book vendor. They went out of business at the end of 2025, and they offered free shipping. That's huge when you're buying a lot of books. And we are now paying shipping costs with our new vendor, and there were no other free shipping options. Programming is the next biggest phase of our budget at $16,000. It's pretty close to even between youth and adult. That youth programming budget, a good chunk of that is our summer reading program, where we see a lot of kids every day at the library. And then digital materials are about $11,700. Those are broken down by ebooks, audiobooks, and the platform fee. So we are fortunate we participate in the state consortium, which is Libby. If you use the ebooks and audiobooks, it costs us about $2,200 a year to belong to that consortium. And then we have the full range of all of the books that the state offers. If you are a user of those services, you know that the wait can be long for some of the more popular titles. And so each month, I am able to go in and look at what Polk City Library patrons have on hold through Libby. And I look at those titles, and the ones that have those, inevitably there's one that's got, each month there's 12 people waiting for this title, which is probably going to be close to a 6-month wait for you to get it off of Libby. And I have the option then to purchase that item and have it available only for Polk City residents. And that speeds up their ability to get those materials sooner. What most people don't realize is for library purposes, ebooks and audiobooks are extremely expensive. So when you are looking at a budget of $3,500 for the year for ebooks, the average ebook costs me $58. And I get to have it for 2 years or 26 checkouts, whichever comes first, and then it disappears out of our collection. The $6,000 for an audiobook, the average cost of the audiobooks that I purchased last month was $98 a piece. Those I do get the option on some of them to have forever. And so I try and take advantage of that, especially if I think that it's a title that's going to have staying power. I can usually save maybe 30% if I want to go with a 26 use or 2-year license on that book. But they're very expensive. So we are usually able to get about 5 titles a month to bring down those wait times. But with that, get this out of it, but circulation of our physical items, I'm going to kind of jump over to the far right there. Last year we circulated, or in fiscal year 25, we circulated 40,222 items. And we had 1,048 unique users at the library. And that just on physical items, books, magazines, cake pans, the hotspots, that saved patrons $537,800, which was more than what our operating budget was for the year. You factor in adventure passes, which Friends of the Library pay for our adventure passes. They contribute about $2,000 a year for us to participate in that program. Last year, or in fiscal year, they were used 157 times, saving saving patrons $8,292. And the adventure pass was out of commission for 5 months during that time. We have already surpassed those numbers in fiscal year 26, and we still have spring and summer left to go. So we anticipate those numbers topping out well over $10,000 worth of savings. And then the digital materials. The circulation on those ebooks and audiobooks was $16,999 in fiscal year 25. 5,000 on the ebooks, over 10,000 audiobooks, and about 1,000 magazines. So, like I said, it's kind of hard to put a value on those. If you were to go out and want to go to like Kindle and buy an ebook, it's probably going to cost you between $10 and $20 if you're wanting a new title, which is usually what we're purchasing. That's what people are on hold for. Audiobooks are a little bit different. If you have an Audible subscription, it's going to cost you probably about $14 a month to get one book. So we have 548 users using those digital materials. So when you start factoring in all of that, just on our circulation, we're saving patrons probably close to $800,000 a year. And that doesn't factor in our programming. So when you move into programming, you can see that in fiscal year 25, we offered 533 library programs. 332 of those were adult programs. And then it gets a little deceiving here because it looks like with youth that she only did 165 programs. And then we have general programs at 36. And the state requires that when we report a program, if it covers multiple age ranges. So they look at things as birth to age 5, ages 6 to 11, teens, and adults. Anything that covers more than one of those age ranges, so like when we do a magician in the summer, it's reported as a general program. The vast majority of those general programs are also children's programs. So those 533 programs were carried out by I'll say 3 full-time staff that we have at the library, and really it's 2. I do very little with the programming. I help out when I can or when I'm needed, but that is truly our youth services librarian, Nicole, and our assistant director, Danielle, who does adult programming. They are rock stars. And I can tell you that Danielle did 3 programs today. And you can see that we have in fiscal year 25, had about 8,500 people participate in our programs. So the benefit to the residents of the community far exceeds the operating costs of the library.
You're not even counting like the guys that are just in there for coffee.
So those programs, the 533, or the 332 adult programs counts the coffee groups.
Okay.
So Friday mornings are the guys in there for coffee. So really, that doesn't take a whole lot of staff time other than throwing out the pot of coffee and getting the room set up for them. This morning it was the women, they're in there for coffee. Thursday nights we have sit and stitch. But most like today we had bingo, and they were getting started as I was heading out to lunch, and I think there were probably 12 or 15 seniors in there playing bingo. So really the library is kind of the de facto senior center in Polk City. It's where they come for coffee, it's where they come to do crafts, it's where they do some of their senior fitness activities. It's definitely a busy place.
I would say a toss-up between that and Rising Sun, right? De facto senior center.
So, all right, so if you have questions, if not, I will turn it over, I think probably Mike's next. He's got a bigger ask than I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, just think the arrow. There you
Yep,
go.
I think I've only got
Just
one.
hit down.
Okay, thank you.
Ready.
Yeah, so tonight I think we're kind of lucky here on my presentation because we talked about one of the bigger items already, which is the street repair project and sidewalk repair. So we can take that one right off the list and move forward. So you can see that we are talking about, when we talk about public works, we talk about 4 different budgets. We all know that. So the operating expenses right there are in front of you, $770,000 for streets. Water is $2,200,000. Sanitary sewer is $1.9 million, and stormwater is $83,000. Most of my line items this year, I'm not gonna go through them all, but they were pretty much stayed the same. Like your snow removal, we've been able, believe it or not, with the start we had, we were able to keep it the same because of what's happened over the last little bit of time here. We've recouped back what we did, so it's pretty much a normal year. So anyway, we were able to save some salt there, so we wouldn't have to increase that line item budget. So that's pretty much through all of these 4 departments. We've been able to hold those line items, increase some, decrease some, but we stayed right there pretty even. CIP equipment is a down year for us. That's a good thing as well. We have a loader backhoe that's in the budget. This is a new item. This is not a replacement. This is a new item. And we believe we can do real good things with that. We've needed one for quite some time, and I'm glad to have it in there at $140,000 this year.
Is that something you otherwise would have been renting?
We have been renting that piece of equipment. Yep, exactly, yeah. If we have it, we'll definitely do more with it. So it's a good thing.
And just for curiosity, what does a rental cost us, on a daily or usage basis?
We just had the rental over here that's gonna cost us $2,000 for the week, for the demolition over here.
Okay.
Now, we don't normally rent for a week. We usually rent daily, 2 days, something like that. But it's been, I bet we rent that thing probably now about 5 to 10 times a year.
Okay. And lifespan on one of those is expected to be?
I'm gonna say a 15 to 20 year change out. We have not put it into the cycle yet, but that's what the replacement would be, somewhere between 15 and 20 years.
Okay.
So, we have 2 other things on the CIP equipment list. The batwing mower, that's just our big mower that folds down, but that's what it's called. That replacement is $30,000. And then we have a skid loader angle broom that's on replacement for $15,000.
And I have one more thing on that mower. We contract out almost all of our mowing, but inevitably we get questions from the community. Why would we be buying a mower when we contract out all of our mowing? So just for the public.
Sure. So the batwing mower can reach over the ditches and into the ditches, and some of those rougher areas our contractor cannot mow. So that's what we try to do. We'll knock back ditches with that mower. We do have another mower that front mount mower and we use that for easement work. Like we have sewer easements through timbers that it's really rough, that type of thing. So we use that more for that. But also, 2 years ago, I think it was, we bought the mower and then we bought all the snow attachments for it as well, which is doing a very good job at the town square and around this building. So we tried to make that more versatile. So it wasn't just a mower, it was more than that. So, but those are the reasons we have the mowers. Also, if we get into, situations where we have to mow a person's grass because of, they're not doing it themselves, ordinance type things, we can do it much faster. We've had problems in the past where we try to get the contractor, they're busy, we have certain timelines to match, so that actually works out well for us. We can just, it's time, we go mow it, done. So we do have small things for mowers around here yet, yeah. So, anyway, that's really all I had, for you folks for that, so.
I really want to make something up just to make the last budget hard for you, but
I don't.
If there's no questions, I won't be here at the next budget meeting. No, I'm just joking.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to go over your next slide? You
oh,
just
do I
had
have
like,
another one? Chip?
I didn't
you
think it
had
was
two
that.
things. That's it.
Well, yeah, we've talked about both of them. So the street and trail repair project, we're gonna bring back a little bit more information on sidewalks, for Nick. And, but we've talked about that here already in depth. I don't need to go any further on that. And the staff discussion, I kind of made that little speech there before we ate too. So, I'm not here to get long-winded. I've already had those discussions, so. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Going to round out the last few functions that we haven't talked about tonight. So there's garbage and recycling. You all know the city partners with Metro Waste Authority. We organize garbage and recycling collection for our residents, and we collect their payment and then we remit that payment back to Metro Waste Authority. Total budget, estimated budget for fiscal year '27, $496,000. The final function is the admin and general government budget, and this includes all of the operating expenses for City Hall, for the admin team, for the mayor, city council functions. This includes city attorney as well, and then our audit and election expenses. So total admin and general government budget, $567,000.
I will just, I know people probably want to get out of here, but since we were talking NWA, last night they had the legislative night at central office, and the president kind of ruined the planning of that, took a little attention away and some of the folks, but nonetheless, there are some bills that they're monitoring. They've gotten kind of in the mode of trying to be more proactive. They've got a lobbyist firm that they're using. And one of the things that I shared with Chelsea, this spring, we'll do a landfill tour to do that. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I'll share one of the dates. But it's actually a little bit more interesting than you would think.
I was gonna say, you just take pictures and send them, but yeah,
No,
maybe you need to go and get the whole feeling.
Yeah, it's over in Mitchellville, so it's totally out of sight. But it's a really cool processing facility, and so is the MRF too, for that matter, in Grimes. But anyway, a little update there.
Questions? Any final thoughts on the proposed budget?
I feel like through the many years we've gone through these, not only does it look the best it's ever looked as far as easy to digest and understand, straightforward bullet points. I can tell you put a lot of time in them and effort into it. So thank you, all the department heads, and for putting it together and making it, I feel easy to understand.
Well said.
Well, thank you so much.
Ditto.
Okay,
Anything from you?
that's all I've got.
Steve's got a date.
All right, so item number 2 is adjournment. I'll ask for a motion in a second.
Let's roll.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you, staff. Must be on or something.